Welcome to the March 23rd edition of the PFF Forecast. Finally, news broke before we recorded, and we have the Kansas City Chief here to discuss it all. We're going to break down the Tyreek Hill trade and so much more. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's rock. I've called you the Kansas Simpy Chief before on this podcast, and in public because of your ability to make a meal, to quote you, out of things the Chiefs do. So they trade Tyreek Hill. We had talked about this as being something that was potentially in the offing really for a little while.
Like since they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah.
So I actually, before we get into the simping that you're going to do and me tearing it down with a ruthless abandon.
Okay.
Were you at all surprised by that? And what do you think about the mechanics of what led to it?
Well, so yes, I am surprised because I think the majority, and pleasantly so, the last, ever since they got Mahomes and Mahomes was sort of like, we all figured out that he was one of the best quarterbacks in football. The Chiefs have sort of gone all in to win every single year, right? And, when he was on a rookie deal, that made sense. There was a lot of slack. They went and got Sammy Watkins. They went and got Frank Clark. They re-upped Chris Jones after they won the Super Bowl. They got Joe Thuney last year. They got Orlando Brown. And they get to this place, right? Their season ends with two losses to the Bengals, right? Is basically how it ends, right? And the Bengals are sort of the blueprint for how you can have an edge in football coming from nowhere, right? Draft a rookie quarterback, build a roster around him. And the AFC is seemingly, and the Dolphins are one of these teams now. By the way, the Tyreek Hill thing's still a little awkward because he's been credibly accused of things as well. The Dolphins are this way. The Bengals are this way. The Chargers are this way. And I think what I was worried about as a Chiefs fan was you look at this roster. You got Mahomes' cap hit was $35 million. They have not taken his base salary and turned it into a signing bonus to get this space, right? Which I thought was good because you want to pay the cap hit all in full 1 year, right? So that you can get the relief later. You don't always want to push it back. They had Chris Jones this year's cap hit is $29 million, an interior defensive lineman. Now they could push that back, but his cap hit becomes $36 million next year if they do that, right? They did do it with Joe Thuney. Now, I think if you do these rollovers with cap players, you believe they're going to be there for the majority of their contract, right? Thuney's probably that type of player. Their 8th highest cap hit, despite all this top-heavy nature of the roster, was their kicker, Harrison Butker. This was a roster that was too top-heavy and had too many weak links. They lost Tyrann Mathieu, who was a defensive back who kind of covered up a lot of weak links. Yeah. They lost Charvarius Ward, who was a part of a lucky string for them of getting low pedigree cornerbacks and getting them to play championship caliber football. They lost Mike Hughes, is sort of the same thing. They lost Lucas Niang, their right tackle, in the first Cincinnati game, and now they have a hole there. They have to franchise tag Orlando Brown. And despite all of those defections, they were still only like $1 million or $2 million under the cap, with basically no depth on defense, no starters on the defensive line other than Chris Jones, and no secondary wide receivers. I mean, they had Juju, but you need 3 wide receivers to play football in the NFL this year, and they lost DeMarcus Robinson to the Raiders. In my opinion, they had one or two choices. They could have rolled over on Mahomes, rolled over on Jones, rolled over on Thuney, which they did, I believe Kelsey was also an option, and they could have patched it together and gone all in again this year. Instead, they, I think, did the right thing, which is to
competitive rebuild. The Chiefs are doing a competitive rebuild.
I don't even think it's a rebuild, but you're right.
I'm glad that you ended up on the right take, which is the Chiefs are scared of all of the talent coming into the AFC West. And they've said, well, you know what? We can't compete. We're going to wait. We're going to acquire some draft picks. Finally. I mean, the Orlando Brown trade, an absolute catastrophe. Absolutely.
I'm not taking away from anything they've done in the past. Frank Clark, Orlando Brown, anything like that.
I know you're not. And this is not me coming back at you. This is me getting fired up because you hit exactly on the point that I want to talk about. 2 takeaways. Ryan Poles got out of there just in time. Because it ain't going to look so pretty coming up here. And one of the reasons for that is, they drafted a running back in the first round. They traded number ones for
a number 1 and a 2 for Frank Clark.
And a number 1 and number 2 for Frank Clark. And they made all of this investment in free agency on high-paying offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, now, I think this is a lose-lose trade, to be clear, because I believe that I would never trade for a guy like Tyreek Hill. And by the way, you can donate as we have in light of the Deshaun Watson thing. And one of the comments that I heard was, hey, do this when you talk about other players. The answer is yes, we will. And Tyreek Hill is one of those players. I would not trade for him. Go donate to the Ohio Alliance
to End Sexual Violence.
To End Sexual Violence. Thank you. I didn't have it in front of me. Or do whatever you need to do to make that right. I would not have traded for Tyreek Hill. But I don't believe that's why the Chiefs got rid of him. Now, I would hope that may have played into it, but I don't think that was it, right? I think the reason that they got rid of him isn't really that they're scared of the rest of the competition, but they're kind of backed into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they're backed into a corner is the myriad of really dumb things that,
not dumb, but
hindsight is 2020. But at the time, you could make a case were not plus EV moves that have compounded.
Well, here's the thing.
That were luxuries at the time, right?
Yeah.
It was a luxury to draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the
running
first
back
round.
linebacker the year after you won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. A luxury to go get Orlando Brown and give up that draft capital for him. A luxury to go get Frank Clark, right? And it's like, well, the problem is it's that commercial where the guy goes, he says, at the end of your life, will you regret the things that you didn't buy or the places you didn't go?
Yeah.
The things that you buy that are luxury items compound. And making plus EV moves, even if they're small and even if people don't like them at the time, can have a great downstream impact that you could have had here in keeping.
And there was also just no slack, right? When you look at the Rams did something similar, they went all in, but all the players that they paid premium picks and premium dollars to played that way. Right. Kupp, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald were all top 10.
Stafford.
We're all top 10 players in terms of PFF WAR for non-quarterbacks. Stafford was the top 5 one in terms of quarterbacks. And the Chiefs, right? So here's a few things. And again, they draft Breeland Speaks and Tano Passigno in the Mahomes draft and then the next draft. They're so bad. Breeland Speaks played 1 year, got 1.5 sacks. Second round pick, traded up for him in the second round in 2018. That was Veach's first draft. That was Veach's first draft pick. Right? Now, you compound those errors with Frank Clark, right? And then you get some bad luck. And here's the thing. Mitchell, when they decided to go all in 20, they did not expect Mitchell Schwartz's career to end with a back injury, and they did not expect Eric Fisher to tear his Achilles in the AFC title game. So then what happens when you get bad luck, but you also have errors and you have the payment for errors?
You're not robust to those things.
You have to pay up for Orlando Brown. And they felt like they had to pay up for Orlando Brown just to get an NFL caliber tackle on the field. Now, I think, again, so all those things happen. And they're also just not playing the same game anymore as these other teams, right? They're not playing the same game as the Chargers. They're not playing the same game as the Bengals. They're playing the same game as Buffalo, but Buffalo has had a half a decade of good decisions under Bean and under McDermott. So this to me, and again, I don't want to cape for the team, and I don't want to do this, but this is the first step towards, this is what Mahomes' first or second year technically on this deal.
Yep.
This is what you have to do. Deion Branch won a Super Bowl MVP. And Belichick traded him to Seattle the next freaking year, right? This is, and again, some of the things are also just, and maybe lucky. I think if Christian Kirk doesn't get paid what he gets paid and Devontae Adams doesn't get traded, Tyreek's back to the Chiefs on a $21 million APY deal. Yeah. Like, to me, this is kind of lucky, right? Because now, and we modeled it out, Tyreek's worth last year about half a win above replacement. A good, rule of thumb is $10 million per quarterback, $50 million per non-quarterback. So he's worth about $25 million. The Dolphins give him about 30 per year, right? It just didn't make dollars and cents for the Chiefs. And now you look, okay, they send him away. They get $20 million in relief right away, which, like, if you want to price it out, that's worth probably a first round pick, right? All told. Then they get the 29th pick. Then they get, I think, pick 50.
Yeah, so they got the first rounder, a second rounder this year. I believe that is 50. They got a fourth rounder as well. And then in 2023, they got a fourth and a sixth.
Yeah, exactly. So you get that, and now you're at $28 million under the cap, which is leading the NFL currently. And again, this just gives them the flexibility to go in and let things breathe. Because here's the one thing: the Chiefs are not the favorites in the AFC anymore, and they're not the favorites in the NFL anymore. Nor should they be. We talked about that last week. Yeah.
But are they the favorites in the AFC West?
They are. They're betting favorites in the AFC West.
Should they be? Or should we bet against them ruthlessly? Because these draft picks, the chances of these draft picks, being a huge, we talk about this a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Draft picks, expecting them to immediately produce is asking a lot. And they're probably going to go running back linebacker here at 29 and 30.
Let's not go there. So I think, so my biggest issue here is, okay, but that doesn't, look, you were either going to take some really shitty gambles on late round picks or street free agents, or you were going to take these gambles. To your point that you've made and you tweeted to me about, they have to find a way they have to find a way to put together a wide receiver core. But now, there's rumors that they're after Stephon Gilmore, which I think would be a good value signing for them. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was visiting this morning.
Wow.
And
no way.
Yeah.
That's where we've gotten to. We've gotten to the point where the Kansas City Chiefs, once the most vaunted offense on a football field, are hoping and praying.
We're not praying.
That Marquez Valdes-Scantling comes home. That is like a riches to rags story, where it's like 1 year you're hoping you get, a new car for Christmas, and the next year it's like, man, I really hope I get that pair of socks I was looking for.
This team not being that good anymore. Okay, here's the thing.
Of course I am.
Of course. And I know I know, but
I think it's legitimate. I think we should legitimately consider, though, has more talent ever come into a division than the talent that has come into the AFC West? Let's not even, you have the Broncos and the Chargers, both of whom are now legitimately very good teams.
Yep.
But the fact that the Raiders don't suck, matters as well, right?
Raiders made the playoffs last year, but yeah.
But they were going to be. You have people legitimately trying to make arguments that the Raiders are the second best team in this division, which I think is a little bit of hyperbole, a lot of hyperbole.
It's tricky.
But for a theoretically worse team in the division, they're very good. And so a team that last year, I think we had legitimate questions about, and questions about their offensive efficiency for the first time, really, is losing. Say what you want about how terrible of a person he is. Losing a player that was kind of uniquely dynamic on a football field in a receiving core that stunk.
But here's what I'll say, because again, this is going to circle back to your thing, and then this is not me being a homer. This is me being realistic about this football team. The Chiefs did struggle as an offense last year. Yep. They won a game against Dallas 19-9. They got held to 3 points by a kind of a bum-ass Titans defense, right? They were down 20-17 in the fourth quarter to the Giants in Monday Night Football to start their winning streak, their vaunted winning streak.
Yep.
They won 13-7 against the Packers. They won 19-9 against the Cowboys. They won 23-9 and the best under in history against Denver on Monday Night Football. Mm-hmm. The Raiders gift them a game where they don't run the too high. They score a ton of points. They get shut out in the second half, touchdown-wise, against the Bengals twice.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Last year, Tyreek Hill's average depth of target went down 2.3 yards. Tyreek Hill's yards after catch went down 1.3 yards. This was my reasoning for wanting Marquez Valdes-Scantling on this team. Was Tyreek Hill is not Tyreek Hill anymore, and it's not a. Hold on. It's not a talent level thing.
Yeah.
It's not a he's declining thing. The defenses of the NFL for the last 4 years have seen Patrick Mahomes put them on a skillet and have decided we're not going to do anything except for play too high and stop Tyreek Hill from going deep, right? And that took away a significant fraction of their offense. Now,
what took away a significant portion of their offense, Eric, and I think this is a point you might just be about to make, is that they couldn't capitalize on the fact that teams were trying to stop one fucking player. And
so they get Juju. But here's the problem, though. Here was the thing they faced. So Tyreek Hill played 53% of his snaps in the slot the last 2 years. Juju Smith-Schuster, who they just acquired, 75% of his snaps in the slot. Tyreek Hill, if he was going to make anywhere from $21 million to $30 million per year, was going to have to get targets somehow to justify that contract. That is how it works. And so he was going to, which he did last year, run more underneath routes and be more of a Devontae Adams type for that team. Whether he was good at it or not, that was what they were going to do. And to me, again, and Tyreek Hill the last 2 years, 23 drops, 10 last year. Big part of their offense was the fact that they were dropping passes when teams were giving them the underneath shit, to your point.
Yep.
So my thing with Marquez Valdes-Scantling was Tyreek Hill is your Devontae Adams. MVS is your MVS. Be the Packers offense that way. If you're going to run Tyreek deep, you better not throw it to him because the teams are taking that away. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, it was never going to be congruent to have Juju have 100 catches on this team, Travis Kelce have 100 catches on this team, and Tyreek Hill take a dip from 182 targets, which was a career high last year, by 20, and have the thing down to like 140, 100, 130, right? So again, Tyreek has way more utility on another team than he was going to have on the Kansas City Chiefs, especially at his dollar figure. Now, are they better without him? No, but at least now it goes from a situation where you have all of these issues on your roster. Defense, you have no corners, you have no backup linebackers, you have no starting edge players. You have no nose tackles as a starting caliber player. You don't have a right tackle. And meanwhile, you're on your offense grinding. That last season, they were 12-5. It was a fucking grind. You're grinding to get 2% better in your existing offense. You're trying your damnedest to figure out the two deep.
Don't you ever call your season a grind, you privileged piece
They are grinding. And they grinded.
You want to know grind?
I know.
Go be a Lions fan.
But they were grinding to get 12-5. At least now.
Grinding.
At least now. The change has to happen. And it has to happen with the buffer of having 4 picks in the top 50 or 62, I'm sorry, and 28 million in cap space, which they didn't have before. That's the positivity I'm spitting from this. They didn't get better today yet, right? The Dolphins didn't get worse yet. The Dolphins, Tyreek has more utility to the Dolphins than he does to the Chiefs. And here's the last point I'm going to make, and we made it a little bit last week on the podcast on Sunday. After they won the Super Bowl in 19, there was a ton of utility in being the best AFC team. We didn't know Buffalo was amazing yet. We didn't know Josh Allen was who he was. Tom Brady had just retired. The AFC West was a shit show. For them to go all in 2020 to be the 1 seed and go to the Super Bowl and win it made sense. I thought there was a ton of marginal value in being the 1 seed in the AFC. Last year, a little less so. I don't think for this Kansas City Chiefs team, A, they could have actually achieved it, and B, whether there was any marginal utility in doing so. The AFC, the 7th seed in the AFC, is going to be a bus this year. So for the Chiefs to scrap and claw and try to get lucky in that division and get the 1 seed,
yeah,
I
agree. A competitive rebuild. We're going to talk briefly about the Dolphins side of this equation, as well as little Matt Ryan trade here in just a second. But reminder, you can get now 25% off with any PFF subscription with the promo code FORECAST, FORECAST. by going to pff.com and then subscribing. Get either an Edge or an Elite subscription. Edge gives you access to all the content that you know and love at PFF, NFL Draft Guide, all of our free agency rankings, and PFF yearly grades. If you get an Elite subscription, that gives you all of the betting tools that Eric and I talk about and use every single week, plus all of the weekly grades and much, much more data with premium stats. Go to pff.com, get your subscription ASAP. Are the Miami Dolphins legit? They've signed Teron Armstead.
They franchise tag Mike Gesicki.
Yep. Huge.
They
have
got
Jalen.
Raheem Mostert.
They have, look, Raheem Mostert is
Niners
a legend. He's going to be so good in 2 games.
Who did they
next
also
year.
get on the O-line? They got 2 offensive linemen when they needed 4, I think.
You're asking the wrong person because
they have Waddle, which is good. I know
Waddle's fantastic.
I
Tyreek Hill and Gesicki and Chase Edmonds was someone that they also signed. So they've done a lot of work this offseason.
And they were a 9-8 team. Now they were a bad 9-8 team.
They have Mike McDaniel now, right? So you think about Mike McDaniel, think about that offense with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, those running backs, now an offensive line.
You're going to call him Debo Hill from now on.
Here's my question to you. Is Tua Jimmy G? No. Is he even Jimmy G?
Oh,
because that's what that is the really interesting thing here. And giving up that first round pick
and your second round pick
makes it really hard to reload there. I am fascinated by this.
Tua's average depth of targets. We talked about Tyreek Hill last year was 10.6. It was down 2.3 yards. Tua's average depth of target last year 7.4. Tua last year 10 big time throws, 22 turnover worthy plays. Mm-hmm. In a league full of 3 WAR players at the position, he was a 1 WAR player, which means
where did that rank?
It's like 35th or something.
It wasn't great.
There were backups that came in and played and got more WAR than Tua. Tua so far in his career, 17 big-time throws, 35 turnover-worthy plays, 6.6 yards per pass attempt, 20. He's taken 40 sacks, 20 each year. NFL pass rating of 88.8, which, that's beneath average. 90, or actually higher than 90 is, average now. I made a joke that this is Teddy Bridgewater's team, but that's
most predictable thing on planet Earth.
But this is one where if you're the Dolphins, you're probably going to go back into the quarterback 2023. Well, because this isn't your guy, right? This isn't your draft pick.
And that's so. I said this sort of wishingly, trying to manifest that they're really just getting weapons for Jimmy G. And I think I'm wrong there, but just for a second,
Tua fumbled a lot last year too. He was bad at that too.
I have a really hard time watching Tua play football, and you just cited all the data points that I would have cited as well. But just watching him play, here's how I'll describe it. The guy that he drops back to pass and you're just always worried?
Yeah.
That's Tua.
Yeah, no.
And Jimmy has some of that, but
we've moved past that as an NFL, except for him.
He's one of those guys. Now I think there are a couple others. Zach Wilson, I know that you stand, but Zach Wilson's one of those guys where he drops back and you're just terrified. Taylor Heineke, another one of those guys. Nick Foles, another one of those guys.
Nick Foles is a good comp for Tua.
Andy Dalton.
If Tua was around during the Chip Kelly years, he could have had success. But you remember Nick Foles with the St. Louis Rams? How freaking that was an abomination. Nick Foles was one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen play football for the Rams. If you put Tua in a normal offense, the other thing that people don't, and I know the 2 high guys, Deontay who's left us, but Seth Galina talk about they run a ton of RPOs too. They've almost ruined the RPO in Miami because of how just kind of awful it is with like how like neutered their passing game is. But like, look, like, and it didn't get better for Tua. Here's my issue. So they finished the season with all but one win down the stretch, right? And I know that like the Tennessee game was the one they lost, and they got to play Ian Book and all this shit. But his passing grades the last 4 weeks of the year: 44.3, 4 turnover-worthy plays; 48.3, 3 turnover-worthy plays against the Jets; 47.6, 3 turnover-worthy plays against the Titans, who are not a good defense; and then 62.9, 2 turnover-worthy plays. That dude, carry the 2, had 12 turnover-worthy plays in the last 4 weeks of the year. You cannot, like, if you are going to be a Brad Johnson,
you can't just turn the ball.
If you're going to be one of these underneath dink and dunk, like, if you're going to be a Teddy Bridgewater, you better not throw turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah. Well, here, let me make the case, okay? Because over the last 2 seasons in San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm citing our coworker Arjun's air yards over expected here. Yards, average depth of target over what you'd expect given the context. Jimmy G, about a single yard, 1.0 yards below expectation. Now, this surprises no one. They should throw the ball short. You know, yak is their game.
Yakety yak.
And if you look at Tua, when he drops back, you're terrified. When he throws the ball more than 5 yards downfield, you're even more terrified.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're looking at this and they're going, look, we're going to turn this guy into Jimmy G. He's going to throw short. He's going to throw on time. We're going to get Teron Armstead. He's not going to get beaten to oblivion. Yeah. And this is our best. Look, we invested a fifth overall pick in him. This is us making that move, and we're going to go for it. You know why I think Mike McDaniel might believe that's the way to go? Because they just went to an NFC championship and a Super Bowl 2 years before with that same offense.
That's the upside. So Jimmy G last year, 12 big-time throws, 30 turnover-worthy plays. So a similar ratio.
I don't use this word very often. It was a privilege to watch my man Jimmy
his
work.
Last 5 games of the year, 3 turnover-worthy plays, 3 turnover-worthy plays.
Don't you dare. The man was playing with his left arm.
Well, and so here's the one benefit that Jimmy G has over Tua.
Everything?
Jimmy G, since he joined the Niners, every single year except for 2020, which it was 7.8, had 8 yards per pass attempt. Tua was 6.6 last year, I believe. So you're talking about almost 2 yards more per play. And the reason is, for better or worse, Jimmy throws what's called. That is the difference between Jimmy G and
we're gonna find out.
Tagovailoa.
We're gonna find out because Tua has not been in an offense where you were excited to throw what's called.
Yeah.
So this will be this is putting the ultimate test together for Tua. And if he fails, I will be very interested to see if they try and make a move for Jimmy G. You know why? Because if they have Jimmy G healthy, they're the second best team in that division. With Tua, I still take the Patriots over them.
You think the Patriots have only had defections this offseason for the most
Bill
part?
Belichick, and I've talked about the Patriots before, but like I will take Bill Belichick against Tua Tagovailoa 8 days a week.
And I'm wondering also with Mike McDaniel, you're talking about a guy who's like never called plays. You're also talking about a guy who's never been a head coach.
There's a lot of newness, yeah.
A lot of newness. You also have dysfunction in the front office there, right? Like that caused the Brian Flores thing, that caught like the Greer stuff. You know, that they're going all in this year, but like, you know, teams that go all in kind of have one or two.
You can't go all in if your quarterback is this bad. This is like it's not quite the Mitch Trubisky Bears thing, but it might be kind of close.
Spectacularly.
It might be kind of close.
And my issue here though is also with the Dolphins. Like they want Gesicki to be Kittle. That's just not going to happen.
No, they're not that stupid. But let me posit a couple.
Would you give Gesicki the franchise?
Let me posit some options here. So Matt Ryan just got traded to the Colts, but you've got Baker out there. No one wants Baker Mayfield.
No one.
Jimmy G's out there. The potential for them to like make a quick move if they want is there. How would you feel about Baker Mayfield in that offense? I'd be at least interested. I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield believer at this point in time. But Jimmy G is definitely interesting there as well. Look, I want to talk Matt Ryan trade here in just a second. Before we do, if you want to bet on any of these wonderful things, like the Chiefs are going to not win the division after turning into a competitive rebuild, go to DraftKings and the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Not sure if you know, but basketball is happening. And you can use promo code PFF and bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. So go sign up, use promo code PFF, capitalize on all those free bets, and let them roll into glory for the NFL draft. If you don't have a sports book in your region, it's okay. There are tons of huge cash prizes you can win with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Basketball Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at $1 million in total prizes with their first deposit as well. So go to DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code PFF at the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 and over, minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for a full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Speaking of responsible gaming resources, Manscaped. You were wondering how I was going to transition, and I did, though, seamlessly.
The transition.
It was beautiful. It's kind of like the transition that the Chiefs are making from having a good receiving core to a bad one. We fully endorse the Manscaped product. I use it. I think Eric uses it once a year or thereabouts. Every once in a while.
How do we know this? You're just making guesses?
I'm just basing. Yeah, I figure you lose it for like 8 months, and then you find it, and you use it, and then you lose it. And do you know where your lawnmower 4.0 is right now?
I know where my actual lawnmower is, and I know where my lawnmower 4.0
is. Look at you,
yeah.
a man of the people right there. I shouldn't have doubted you. I'm sorry.
No, of course.
I'm sorry. Promo code PFF, 20% off at manscaped.com. Get the Ultra Premium Collection. That's right. It's more than just about your private parts. It's all the way from the hair on the top of your head to the moisture in your skin. And that's what Manscaped is here to make sure you've got totally covered. They have body wash, they have 2-in-1 conditioner, they have hydrating body moisturizer to invigorate that dry skin, deodorant for obvious reasons, and lip balm. Because if you have chapped lips, it doesn't matter what anything else looks like. You're not making it anywhere. You're not making it anywhere. I don't know what I was going to say there. 20% off with promo code PFF at manscaped.com plus free shipping. Matt Ryan goes to the Colts. And my initial take here was, there's been a lot of quarterback moves. Mm-hmm. And obviously Russell Wilson over Drew Lock is the biggest upgrade. But this is a big upgrade for the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
A team that all they had to do was beat the worst team in the NFL to make it to the playoffs. That's how good that team was with Carson Wentz. And Matt Ryan was, I think we're going to find out, certainly this year, playing in not so great of a situation over there in Atlanta. And I want to be bullish on the Colts now. I do. And I don't know if that's the amount of pain that we've suffered through with Matt Ryan, the number of times we bet the Falcons. But I don't know. I almost feel like this is literally the perfect situation for him to be in. With a guy like Frank Reich, with a strong offensive line. He's still a super smart quarterback. He's going to be a huge upgrade over Carson Wentz.
He's worth about a win above replacement more than Carson, which I think, given all the bullshit in Atlanta, was probably good, right? Like a pretty good omen.
Now he has kind of a noodle. That's the only that's the only issue.
When Matt Ryan can't set his feet, it's a privilege right now. But like here's my thing with the Colts. Both the Colts and Matt Ryan were backed into a corner, and I think both are doing about as well as they could given the situation they've been put in. Yeah. Right? So obviously, if you look back at the last 6 years and you knew what was going to happen in hindsight, the Colts should have just drafted it. Like, the Colts should have tanked harder when Andrew Luck walked out on them, and Jacoby Brissett was their quarterback, and they instead started 5-2 and limped to 7-9 and didn't have a chance, right? And then they went and got Phillip Rivers, and then Phillip Rivers did just good enough to make the play. You know what I'm saying? Like, all these steps have put them in this position, but given they're in the position that they're in, this is about as well as they could have done. I mean, Matt Ryan indoors with a good offensive line and a running game to help support him and a defense that's not a joke. Like, that's probably all you could ask for. And we really haven't seen Matt Ryan with any sort of support. I mean, think about this. Like, we talk about cap hell and all this stuff, right? Like, we talk about cap hell and we talk about, I mean, the Falcons have dealt with it the worst of anybody, or put themselves in this position worse than anybody, right? I mean, they're paying Matt Ryan $40 million not to play for them this year, which is the highest cap charge a player's ever taken on to play or not to play for a team. Yep. So, and he's dealt with it, right? Like, he's dealt with the fact that, like, they pushed their chips into the middle after 2016, and then after 2017, then after 2018, and then, like, they needed the 2 offensive linemen to hit. Right? They needed Ridley to be the number 1 after Julio left. They had to have so many gambles, right? This kind of comes back to the Packers and the Chiefs kind of arguments, right? And why they moved on from high-priced guys. And none of those bets hit for the Falcons. And it left Matt Ryan, frankly, like, you watched that Thursday night game against the New England Patriots, and it's just like,
I tried not to.
I mean, it's sad to see a guy who's the MVP of the league look so feeble, right? So yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing him in Indy.
Yeah, it was, to go back to, the metric that I just cited, which is, average depth of target above or below what you'd expect. How aggressive are you, given what's called? He was actually above expectation in 2020, interestingly, by about 0.2 of a yard. And that dropped dramatically. It was about a yard below expectation last year. And last year was the first time that he has had a negative EPA per pass play since 2013. So did he fall off a cliff, or did that offense suck? Or was it a little bit of both? Can you do a little TB12 method?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like, and a lot of these guys, that's the thing about a lot of these guys is they're getting older, right? Like, talking about Ryan, talking about Kirk Cousins is 34. You couldn't make it through one podcast without keeping Kirk's name out. But some of these guys, some of these older quarterbacks, like, that's the other thing that you have to, like, worry about, because Brady has sort of broken all the rules by being like this god, physically after the age of 35. I think the issue here, and we saw it. Remember that game you and I bet against each other where I had Indy and you had Cleveland, and Phillip Rivers couldn't not. Like, they dealt with Rivers' noodle for that whole season, 2020, and to me, I think that's where it's going to be hard for the Colts to compete. But I don't know if they're competing for a Super Bowl as their goal this year, right? I think for them it's just like, this is where the Ryan thing doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So sure, you can compete in the AFC South. I think you're plus 120. You're tied with the Tennessee Titans. I think the Titans are ripe to get picked this year, as far as the king there. But are you as good as the Chargers? Are you as good as the Chiefs? Are you as good as the Raiders? You
might be the 8th best team in the conference, maybe.
And you get the 4 seed, and then I guess the issue is like everybody looks at the Bengals and says that's a 10-7 incomplete team on the 4 seed, and they made the Super Bowl, and it took some luck because the Chiefs were a flawed team and they knocked out the best team, and it takes some luck there.
They might legitimately be like a bottom.
Half of the division, half of the conference.
Bottom 5 or 6 team in the conference.
Yeah. But because the East has the Bills and possibly the Dolphins
and the Patriots.
And the Patriots who were a playoff team last year.
North has the Ravens, the Browns, and the Bengals. Yeah. And the West has 4 great teams. Like, you go look at that and you go, man.
Yeah. And so that's my worry here, is that their issue has been that they've never been in position to get a franchise quarterback. And they're perpetuating that, right? Like, what if Ryan has a good year? Let's say he has a 6 out of 10 this year. Are they running it back with him?
Right. I mean, that's the question. Like, what is the future there for Indianapolis? I'm going to go ahead and say this: they don't really know. Yeah. I think that's clear here.
And to be honest, like, not to bring this back to the Chiefs, but Ballard was with John Dorsey before. And it was sort of the same thing with them, right? The Chiefs traded 2, like, think about this, the Wentz stuff, right? Like the Wentz and the, what Cousins was going to go for, what Baker Mayfield was going to go for before. Like the Chiefs traded two second-round picks for Alex Smith. And they kind of, because that was a bad quarterback draft. That was Eric Fisher and Luke Jokel were the top 2 picks. Chiefs had the first pick. They had to go tackle. And they had Alex Smith, and Alex Smith was good enough to get them into the playoff, much like Indianapolis, much like what Indianapolis is dealing with now. They're good enough to sort of get in that 10-win range. And like Ballard, the only thing Ballard knows, I think, is to like sort of stay the course with your kind of okay quarterback until some Mahomes or Malik. I think Malik Willis is that quarterback for a few teams this year, but for the most part, it's not available to the Colts. They don't have a first-round pick. And like but the problem is all of those situations have not worked for Ballard, right? Like Jacoby Brissett was not good enough.
Right.
Rivers retired. Carson Wentz wasn't good enough. And now, I think Matt Ryan is probably the first guy that might be good enough, but he's older, right? Like it could fall off a cliff for him.
Good enough maybe to make the playoffs and be an underdog at home.
Like Alex Smith.
Like
that was exactly what the Chiefs dealt with.
Like, so yeah, is it for Matt Ryan's sake? I hope that his arm gets a little bit more life. In reality, I think it's like look, we know this about the Colts. They're here to hang a division win banner. So
yeah, I'd still take the Jags in that division.
Stop it.
Come on.
Stop it. That's how we know we got to end the podcast. Incredible. You take the Jags in that division?
Their numbers have actually gone down, so maybe not. I took them at like 8-1. Of course.
Incredible.
There's value all over.
You moved from Zach Wilson to Trevor Lawrence and Christian.
By the way,
Kirk.
I had prepped a mock draft of the first 10 picks for us if there was nothing happening today.
The Lord giveth.
Jets have 2 picks in the top 10. I actually kind of struggled to find like a need for the Jets. The Jets are kind of like okay everywhere except for quarterback.
Oh my God. Here we go. It's going to happen again. We're like 5 months away from the NFL season. I can already feel it. That was our podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you on Sunday. Peace.